Maybe you have heard the expression, a time to try men's souls. I'm not so sure that means anything more than a time when parochial extremists are impinging on the body politic. But it is interesting to me that throughout the COVID experience part, we've been treated to a very fine um, mind on the part of Pope Francis. It seemed like every time somebody said something I agreed with, it was him, whether it was concern for immigrant children, migrant children, so called illegal people, or the abandonment of the elderly and essential workers. He finally said something I found controversial, and so I'm going to respond. In a way, I'm a bit relieved. I think it's nice to have a disagreement with someone I usually agree with. He said the UN has no power, meaning the United Nations. He's in spiritual turmoil because of the war in the Ukraine. I think I can help him with all of this. Maybe I can't. Maybe he knows more than I do. But I think I can. And sometimes that's good enough. God, after all, gave us not sure power to overcome evil, but the will to try to. And to a great degree, by that is what we are measured. The will to try. As Tolkien put it, if they knew what they faced, they would not dare, but they would wish they dared. We have the will to try. So, at the very least, I wish to try to help him with this idea that the United Nations has no power. He can obviously see, if he sees this video, which he probably won't, where this is leading. People have often said that the Third Reich, with its nightmares, was proof that God had no power on earth. It's an easy thing to say. God gave us the will to try to overcome the Third Reich, and we succeeded. It was a time to try men's souls, they like to say. And indeed, an argument can be made that it was better to perish in the attempt than to survive failing to attempt. And this created a Holocaust survivor community perplex in the city of Pittsburgh, where lesser intellectuals got hold of what was going on and did lesser things, much to damage themselves and others. A place called Pitt, who believed in experimenting with times to try men's souls. I think some experiments are criminally unbecoming. I'd like to tell you a little bit about this. One of the things that being beaten up a lot by adult savages as a child in the city of Pittsburgh taught me was their belief that fighting was an end in itself, and that if you didn't fight, you were only cheating yourself. What they did was impinge a dialogue about rape, date rape, actual rape, cognition of rape, imagining things, wanting to fulfill gratification at a woman's expense. So that no matter what position I chose, I would be accused of being cognitive of rape, no matter what I said. So I'll explain the position I expressed, which was that if the woman was not completely, consciously, and assertively consensual, that you back off. They said this was only cheating yourself. They said that under the circumstances, it would not have been rape. And because they had tortured me and tormented me and abused me, I became hysterical in defense of my dignity and manhood. Now, those of you who have seen Chariots of Fire know that there are people in the world for whom honor is everything. They can't live without being the best, and they take it out on everyone else. Some people cheer the victory of others, even if they themselves lose. In fact, it's an honor code in Japan to thank someone who defeats you for the lesson. At their best, they are wise people. At their worst, just like anyone else. What became of the honor of the Rangers conceived of by Tolkien, I will never understand. Tolkien says those little people scorn us as Rangers. They were the Dunedain, a much more proud race of people. Line of people, I should say, because they weren't a race. They were a line of people. And he said with merriment, as long as those silly, carefree people are up there living their senseless lives, I will be happy in my duties. It was the magnanimousness of a man who knew what it meant to try and prevail on behalf of others. Instead, what we got was a variation on Bertolt Brecht's play Man is Man. The Germans, who were senselessly cruel, and their allies in America, Japan, and elsewhere, Argentina very conspicuously, and now Trumping, sought to vindicate themselves by forcing horrors on people. You think it's better to die than die. If you want to live, then join us. The old song and dance. The extremism. And Man is Man by Bertolt Brecht expresses the pigeonholed mindset of Peter J. Sinfield of King Crimson. K is C and C is K. And never the twain shall be extricated from one another. Man is Man. It's a story of a man who's idealistic, carefree, and good, who's driven insane with cruelty, I suppose. And so he becomes a beast of tyranny. And to prove this, they impacted a neuroplasm for personality change and the nicest kid in the neighborhood they could find. I mean, Pitt's derision speaks for itself. It's a signature of their stupidity. But it gave Vlad is Vlad their talking points in the metaphorical draft that the draft board and the Karls and the Trumpy-Tunes and the Reagans conjured out of the Ukraine so that they could score points against us in murder ball. Harvard wore most hockey ball, pussy ball. It's a sad story. I don't think in the end of the story, what we're really seeing is people whose character should be extolled over others. To me, when you disregard the power of the body politic, the will to try, the power of the powerless, the power of the United Nations, and I'm sure the Pope knows this, the power of Dr. Martin Luther King. You're only cheating yourself.